hosted by Jason Bryan and providing the latest insights on telecoms trends from around the world. This is Rocco Radio.
Hello there, I'm Jason Bryan, CEO Rocco Research, and welcome to The Slice, a series of podcasts dedicated to the industry's biggest trends. On this show, I speak with Henning Lagerbielke, Director BSS at Enghouse Networks. Following the recent developments by the GSMA in creating the billing and charging evolution, we wanted to get some fresh thinking on what BCE really means for the roaming business. As we know, producing new standards is one thing, but getting them established is a much bigger challenge. With the help of Henning from Enghouse, I had the chance to ask the big questions on what BCE really means for the industry, and most importantly, what's its potential.
With BCE, you get support for your discounting agreements, and you have a standardized process that will support your creativity as a partner and your needs as a partner together or between two partners when it comes to bill for that situation. So that's definitely the biggest advantage that you foresee compared to TAP.
Thanks for joining me again, Henning. Let's start with a question on Enghouse. How would you say Enghouse is innovative in the BCE market?
I talked about our single core, single entity platform for all business-to-business elements. What we succeeded to do is to actually support BCE on that platform and being able to not only support the BCE file flows or things like that. We managed to support the complete end-to-end process for BCE, which is kind of necessary to address BCE, I would say. We of course had some benefits since we had for both roaming and interconnecting a single system, and we were end-to-end compatible in processes for both these revenue streams. The BCE process was a good fit since it shared a lot of those elements that you normally reuse. Like from a roaming perspective, it's really not that much. BCE is a completely different process compared to TAP and RAP exchange, but it still involves the same type of data. From an interconnect perspective, BCE is very much inheriting their processes when it comes to the type of reports you exchange on an irregular basis, the reconciliation where you compare the home router data that you have in your network already with what the partner is invoicing you, being able to do this down to DDR reconciliation. That's tools that we could reuse and enrich to support the BCE. So from an innovation perspective, it's of course we've been following the BCE progress within GSMA, and we've been talking about with our customers how we should address this, and if there is a need from the market to actually have this type of solutions in-house, if it should be an outsourced solution. But it seems like the market is ramping up a lot. They want BCE, which is fantastic, and it's good for us to be in a position where we could address the problem with BCE or the solution to the BCE problem kind of quick. The nature of our platform is that it's a transaction-driven platform. It likes big volumes of data, which BCE to a large extent is when you look at the amount of transactions you actually should support or might support going forward. From an interconnect perspective, from an IoT perspective, when you look at those revenue streams, it's always a lot of data. Roaming can be, but not to that extent as we see in, for example, interconnect and IoT. So having that type of processing engine already in place and being able to enrich that to support BCE, I'm not sure if we can say that that's an innovation, but it's at least something that made us in a very good position to support requests from the markets.
And what would you say are the specific benefits that BCE bring over TAP?
It's of course the IoT, the AA14, that you can now have a total flexibility around. The discount agreements we talked about before has been something that is normally happening outside the TAP flow. You have to deal with your bilateral agreements or the discounting agreements separated from that traffic. And with BCE, you get support for your discounting agreements, and you have a standardized process that will support your creativity as a partner and your needs as a partner together or between two partners when it comes to bill for that situation. So that's definitely the biggest advantage that you foresee compared to TAP. In the long term, the BCE standard as such could benefit much more than just roaming for mobile IoT and 5G. There is no standard, so every carrier relationship is a one-to-one relationship. If you were using BCE, you could have a global standard for all your carrier relationships all over the world. Like today, we are investing in AI interpretation, so that you can read your partner invoices. If you are a carrier, you could get hundreds of invoices in different type of formats. Even if it's PDFs, it's in different type of formats. So you can have AI to actually find information and interpret that data. But that's a time-consuming and a costly process. If you were using a standardized process like BCE, everybody would benefit the standard and comply to that. You have the tools and regulations that will drive that business forward and support. So it will be much more simpler. Yeah, I think it might be too much to wish for, but it's at least a potential that is worth discussing.
Last time we discussed some of the most critical changes that must happen to make BCE a standard. We talked about mobile operators trying to help enforce that. Is there a product or service which you think might be the catalyst for BCE becoming a global standard?
Yeah, I think 5G roaming is the driver. Mobile IoT as well, but 5G roaming specifically, because you need BCE to support that relationship. That's already regulated. You could, of course, bypass that bilaterally, but I don't see the benefit since the standard as such does cover the billing relationships, right? So when you want to tap the potential and charge and get revenue out of your 5G roaming relationship, you have different type of relationship depending on how you enable 5G roaming. For example, if you look at slicing, if you look at radio access types, different thing that you can actually differentiate in terms of revenue streams. And BCE is a good standard to actually tap that potential. It's about a big volume of transactions to be settled from a partner-to-partner perspective. And the aggregation framework that is provided together with BCE and the flexibility that you can do in terms of how you want to aggregate things like slice, IMSI, radio access types, service names, service types. You could build your matrix in many ways in order to build exactly as you would like to do if you're driving that business. Makes a lot of sense. And you cannot do that in TAP. So if you don't do it with BCE, you have to find another way. From our customers, we see more and more requests, and they are also requesting to have support for BCE in order to tap the potential of mobile IoT and 5G.
I was going to ask you, Henning, what you thought about the use of blockchain to support some of the roaming processes, particularly in the clearing area. Blockchain has been something we've been studying for a few years in Rocco, and we did a report on it in 2020. There was a number of vendors that came forward, mostly in the clearing area, to take part in the research. What's your thoughts about it?
There are some initiatives around blockchain, especially around the settlement process, which makes sense. That's maybe where we can see the benefit, but there is a big question from my perspective when it comes to the benefit of the blockchain when you go a little bit down on, for example, the transaction level. It will be too costly. Like, we have to think about the energy that will be consumed over time to support the blockchain on big volume. There is definitely a possibility for blockchain on the settlement side, but on the transaction side, I don't think so.
It's interesting because we heard similar stories from some MNOs that they have been part of groups to analyze what they can do with it for roaming, but the business case just didn't stack up. And these are big, ambitious MNOs who you would expect to be interested in innovating their businesses as much as possible. Is this also your feeling?
I totally agree that it's not sure at all that it will justify the investment. I'm not sure at all that there will be a need for blockchain. BCE is a good example where you have the capabilities of bypassing blockchain because there is a simple way to match the data. So as long as it matches, there is no need for a blockchain relationship in the settlement processes. And when you go to where the data doesn't match, then you cannot use the blockchain because then it will be too costly. So then you do the reconciliation on transaction levels. So you basically lose the benefit in using blockchain. It's more than 10 years ago since we started looking into blockchain and to see how that could fit our data model. But at that time, already then, we could see directly that since we're working with transactions, from a transactional level, it makes no sense to introduce blockchain because that will cost enormous amount of resources in the end as the blockchain grows.
One of the key questions I would like to ask you, Henning, is what can Enghouse do to support MNOs interested in BCE?
Yeah, so what Enghouse provides is a platform that supports BCE end-to-end. And this means that any operator can use our services as a managed service, as a cloud service hosted in our hosting center or cloud or on-prem to support the process, to grow with BCE. So it's like a quick adoption to deploy a BCE platform. And then the operators can use it just for BCE. They can use it in parallel with another system for roaming. They could use our platform, of course, for both roaming and BCE. And if they would like to, in the long term, to evolve with BCE for interconnect, etc., our platform will support that as well. Our platform is really scalable in that sense that you can deploy it very small and use it for one single revenue stream, making sure that you have whatever GSMA we are doing in the working groups within GSMA to evolve the BCE standard. Our platform will always support that. It does not only support BCE as it is now, it's also supporting BCE as it's going forward and how it's evolving. And we have a platform that is really, really capable to support that.
Now, you say you attend GSMA working groups on BCE. Do you think there are many misconceptions about what the standard can do? I've seen quite a few misconceptions floating around in social media and in business meetings about what actually BCE really represents.
For the operators and associate partners or members of GSMA that is working in the BCE task force, for example, it's very clear what it is about. You have one goal with that initiative. But there are many operators that cannot prioritize working in these subgroups or being part of the forums and what is happening. So of course there is a big question mark about what is BCE, what do we need to do to support it, and how does it affect our tap flows? And there are a lot of questions, but there is also a lot of answers to find. When I talk to our customers, it's about educating them what BCE is. To some extent, understanding from the business why they need BCE, why is it important, and when that discussion is finalized, so far 100% of our customers does see that they would benefit using BCE going forward. It's a billing and charging evolution, but it's also something that makes things more simple, and it's a benefit in terms of getting rid of manual processes that are happening all over the place in any company today. Mm-hmm. And I will, of course, be happy to talk to anybody that is interested about BCE. Curious on your view on BCE. You've been listening to me. What's your view, Jason, on BCE? Have you?
I think it's clear the TAP standard is not being supported anymore. I think it's clear the TAP was invented for a different world of telecoms, which doesn't really exist anymore. A world where roaming was a premium service and a world where bill shock predominated. So I think the clearing process is definitely needed to evolve, and BCE is a great evolution of TAP. It's definitely helpful in terms of IoT, machine-to-machine support, using a more streamlined and flexible system, and makes total sense. I think there's still going to be some challenges with global adoption, no matter how many big tier 1 MNOs are supporting it. If you consider that there will be many MNOs who don't know anything about it today, there's a lot more education that needs to be done about it. And vendors are talking about this right now. But what we really need is MNO case studies which endorse its use, and the GSMA to come forward and say it needs its members to support it. With 5G and slicing and IoT increasing, and that fact that with every roaming partner, they may need there may be the need of service level agreements, etc., well, we should be jumping on any efficiency gains that we can.
Definitely. The level of automation that you actually can get by introducing BCE, like it's only when there is a discrepancy, that you need to take some actions. Otherwise, it's an automatic process end to end. So as long as the world is perfect, you don't need to do anything.
If you think about it, we're really re-engineering roaming these days. SLAs and slicing will make something which has seemed quite primitive and best endeavors into something reliable in terms of quality and availability.
Yeah, it's essential. The world is expecting one network, more or less, right? It should be seamless, no integration. As you say, the devices, whatever it is that is operating in some kind of service level, just expects that type of service level wherever they are. That needs to be regulated in between the carriers or the MNOs that are offering the services. So definitely re-engineering the way we see telecommunications. Fantastic. It's so interesting to be in that space. In the COVID situation, I wish the technology was a little bit further ahead. Like if you look at VR and being able to use 5G and VR together for football games, or like in a COVID situation where you cannot visit any stadium, but you could do that from a VR perspective. We have the technology, but it's not really mature enough to allow us to get into that experience. BC, I hope to a large extent, will also kick in 2021. It will support those multi-company relationships that we, to some extent, will see in the 5G era, mobile IoT. The way billing and charging has been evolving over so many years, and the result, it's a great benefit. It really simplifies things. It solves problems that you see in TAP. It automates, and it's a standard that will cover the full process.
Thanks for your insights, Henning. It's been a real pleasure talking to you and getting to know you and getting to know Enghouse. And we look forward to seeing how Enghouse is going to develop and the evolution of BCE in the coming years. Thank you.
You too, Jason. It's my pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast and hope it gave you some new perspectives to think about. Until next time, this is Jason Bryan, and you've been listening to The Slice from Rocco Radio.